Good morning. I'm still got people dropping in. Just give us another minute and then we'll do introductions and jump right in because we've got a lot of ground to cover today. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and start us with going around doing introductions while a few more people probably will drop in. At least I'm expecting several more. Let's start. Deirdre, since you were the first one to the party, you get to go first.
Yeah, I always try to tune in first. It takes a while from out in the country to get hooked up. Anyway, this is Deirdre Clark with the John Marshall Soil and Water Conservation District serving Fauquier County.
Thanks, Deirdre. Tommy,
Tommy Blackwell, former Commissioner of the Revenue in Essex County and friend of the Rappahannock.
that was singular. Um, Larry, you're next.
Larry Zaragoza. I live in Fairfax County.
Um, Gary,
Gary Rapecki, Fauquier County Parks and Recreation.
good to have you back with us, Gary. Uh, Ken,
Ken Home, John Marshall, Soil and Water.
Ian, Ian, can you hear me? Of course, if you can't hear me, how would you tell me? Never mind. All right, well, you there, Ian? We're not hearing you. Okay, Ian Whitlock with Dominion. Don,
Don McCowan with Piedmont Environmental Council.
Brianna,
Brianna Heath with the George Washington Regional Commission.
Alana,
This is Alana with the Rappahannock tribe.
let's see, John,
Hi, good morning. John Brundle, Stafford County Utilities.
and Pat.
Good morning, Pat Calvert, American Rivers.
All right, folks, I like got me maybe one or two more folks will drop in, but we got a lot of ground to cover today. So I'm gonna here we go. And here comes Michelle Edwards. Hi, Michelle. We just went around and did introductions. Introduce yourself.
Sorry. Michelle Edwards with the Rappahannock Rapidan Regional Committee. Thank you.
Welcome. All right. I'm gonna get us started. Let's see. Ian, I think my audio is restored. I'm Ian Whitlock with Dominion. Thank you, Ian. Um, all right. I'm gonna share my screen. Um, let's see if I can get to the right place. All right. Everybody seeing the PFAS paper? Okay, I'm assuming so.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. All right. What I want to do is kind of quickly run through. I've got several comments and some things that were missing, some clarification. I'm going to run through what I've got and where we'd be making changes and then any questions. And then if somebody's got anything else, we can come back to that. John, my first question is for you. In the meeting context, we've identified you with Stafford County. Do we want to add an identification that you're with VAMWA, the municipal wastewater group, or
No,
something similar?
what official position with them?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I don't hold an official position with VAMWA, well, other than the Emerging Contaminant Committee, but no, that's fine. Stafford County's fine.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to ask that question. Okay. So I don't really have anything else on this page. It really goes over to page 3 where we needed. And sorry, I've got to add page numbers here. So let me take us on through and get to Virginia legislation. That's where I've gotten the most comments. Okay. What I recognize that I need to do first is at the end of this discussion of HB 1443, SB 386, I've got to insert, right at the end of this, information on the study language that is tacked on to the end of the bill. Let me see if I can. I should have that right here somewhere. Um, okay, yeah, here we go. Um, the third enactment clause, and it's pretty significant. The DEQ will utilize the PFAS Expert Advisory Committee to convene a work group to study recommendations and approaches to reduce the occurrence of PFAS in sewage sludge intended for land application within the Commonwealth. Such work group shall consist of owners of treatment works, private companies that land apply, market or distribute, relevant nonprofit organizations, and any other stakeholders the department deems appropriate. The work group shall develop recommendations for a PFAS sampling program for industrial residuals and industrial byproducts that are land applied, a PFAS sampling program for fields where land application of sewage sludge, industrial byproducts occur, a source reduction strategy for when sewage sludge is found to contain elevated levels, opportunities to expand remediation and disposal options, additional studies regarding PFAS in soils, any appropriate revisions to the concentration-based biosolids management tiers established by this act, additional studies or appropriate PFAS sampling programs for sewage sludge from routine storage facilities with a Virginia pollution abatement permit, a PFAS sampling program for groundwater and surface water. Such recommendations shall include anticipated implementation date for any proposed program or action listed in clauses 1 through 8. The department shall report the recommendations to the governor and the chairs of the cognizant committees by November 1, 2027. The work group shall also recommend reader-friendly format for presenting the compliance data. Let's see, and well, that's basically it. Oh, this is not showing up on the screen. I'm sorry. Huh. Wonder why that is. Okay, let me see if I can solve the problem here.
Eldon, I
Yeah.
think apologies, I didn't realize that you wanted that visible. So I think you might have, when you clicked share screen option, you didn't click entire desktop. And
All right, well, that's just technical weakness.
or I think it will say entire screen rather.
I don't. Okay, let's try it this way. Yeah, here we go.
There you go.
And we'll hold that one, go to this one, and there we go. Sorry about that. I hope people caught it as I read it to you. If you go to the bill, it's at the end of the bill. I need to insert a summary of this at the end of that section. I also think that given the comments um, we can look at inserting this language, and this was sent out to everybody. I neglected to even highlight HB 1072, which allows for localities to test. Um, it's, well, that's commentary. I'll save that. Um, but this language actually identifies one of the weaknesses in HB 1072, which gets at the funding at the bottom. 1072 leaves it 100% to the locality to fund it, and provides no mechanism for training staff or contractors other than whatever the locality can figure out and do. Um, and no guidance on methods. So this would become a new section following right behind Virginia 2026 legislation 1443 386 and insert additional legislation. Then we have one more that needs to be added. And let me go back to this document and scroll down. The study language that was embedded in the budget bill. And so that would be a kind of another new section. Again, inserting right behind, and more direction to DEQ on looking at the capacities of landfills and incineration, and report back out on that, and appropriating $500,000 to conduct that study. As Director Rolban told the Water Commission last week, they don't have the expertise on staff to do that within their staff folks. So they would need to bring in outside folks. Okay, anybody have concern or suggestions relative to those additions to the document? And I think I tried to capture all the comments that people were passing back and forth. Okay. I will proceed to do that. And then I've got a couple more questions. Those are the major changes. The rest that I've got are more editorial. But Larry shared the action by the Court of Appeals. Larry, you want to talk about that just a little bit?
Thank you, Eldon, of course. So, there was a challenge to about the including um, the bios, including them in PFAS in as a hazard is being subject to circular liability. And so that's important because if you trigger Superfund liability, then you're liable for cleanup. And so that's a significant concern for owners and operators of POTWs, as well as really anyone who touches it. And I think the intent that most people think that we should be doing is focusing on the generators, the industrial sources that create it. But the that that exemption, if it was to be cut out, that would be something that would end up getting generally, when that happens, you have states come in and they come up with their own rules so that they fill that gap. That's how it's happened with other contaminants. Uh, so that's basically where it's at. It will continue to be challenged, I think. It's hard to predict how it's going to come out. Uh, I kind of suspect even if it's upheld, states are likely to come in and develop other rules to basically do the same thing. And then you have a hodgepodge of a regulatory system. Was that clear, Eldon, or was it more confusing than clear?
No, I follow. Let's see if other people let's see if other people have questions of Larry on the court decision. Deirdre, you came off mute.
So, Larry, my concern, of course, representing a soil and water conservation district is we could perhaps have multiple farms that have been designated as hazmat sites. And yeah, as I've mentioned before, my preference would be a complete moratorium until we figure out all the moving pieces.
I
Thanks.
think you have sound logic.
Okay, and John, you got your hand up.
Thank you. Yeah, just to follow up with something Larry said, at the federal level, NACWA and other utility organizations are pushing hard for a circular liability exemption for POTWs and utilities, specifically so that if these sites are designated in the future, it still is the manufacturers and the producers who are going to maintain liability and not the POTWs that are land applying the biosolids as passive receivers. That's something that has gotten a little bit of traction at the federal level with this court case. I think that was people were kind of waiting to see where this ended up. So I really am hoping to see that municipal exemption hopefully move forward at the federal level sooner rather than later.
Okay, question for the group. Oh, go ahead, Don. I'm sorry.
Well, sorry, if you want to come back to me, this isn't related to the court case. This is just before we leave the
Oh,
PFAS discussion
okay.
generally.
All
So
right. Well, yeah,
yeah,
don't let me forget to come back to you then.
I'll
Um,
I'll
uh,
come back.
where we need to insert a discussion of that and the the various perspectives that were just expressed. Um, do we want to do that after the let's see, I guess it would be page 4, um, after John's presentation or after the additional committee perspectives, or just put it up front before we get to Larry's on page 3? I mean, I could argue doing it any of those places.
Eldon, I would recommend that you put it right before uh before my stuff because it that would follow the Virginia legislation.
Okay. Other thoughts? Anybody disagree? All right, then I got to work on how we write that. And so that all right. So we've got another insert court case.
Eldon, if I could offer one more thought
Sure.
on John's point, I think that a lot of folks would like to um, design a system so that we don't end up imposing these costs on the POTWs because they're not they're passive receivers. And
Hmm.
I think that's true, including most of the federal government folks that I'm aware of. And so I think what would be desirable if people could get together and agree on things, but that involves bringing a lot of folks together. Um, I think it's good that would have a much better chance than simply the utilities working that issue and advocating for it. Just a thought.
No, valid thought. And I'll probably reach out to John, you and Larry and Deirdre as I try to create a half a dozen sentences to explain this and insert it. Um, and all right, that brings me back to Don. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, thanks, Elda. I just before we left this topic, I think I was following you earlier. It looks like there was agreement to include the that those comments about implementing 1072, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then this the second comment that was from Madeline Green, and I don't know what Deirdre thought about it, but there were the edits proposed to the Soil and Water Conservation District proposal.
And
Um,
I'll let Deirdre
yeah, I didn't
respond.
track those line by line, Deidre, so I don't know what they added or took away, but just wanted to make sure that that was addressed in either version, and I just missed what Eldon
I, I,
already said that.
I honestly didn't see that many changes, and
Okay.
it was just, yeah. But as I mentioned to Eldon earlier, the language from John Marshall has gone forward to our Area 2 group and will be forwarded to state legislators in 2027, hopefully, if Area 2 agrees upon it. So, thank you.
Yeah, and Eldon, I just again missed if that whatever version of that we want.
My intention was to just use exactly what the Potomac Riverkeeper had put forward
Okay,
relative to 1072. I was very
that's good.
comfortable with that explanation,
Good.
and realized, oh my goodness, I just totally forgot to put that in there. Um,
Great.
okay, so and I know that there's at least one county in the basin that's already talked about doing this. And there are probably more. The problem is what's identified at the end of that is the cost. They can't access the existing state fund for implementing it. That's specifically barred within that bill, which I think is a weakness of the bill, but that's just my own opinion. Um, so, okay. Any other comments? I think I've got my marching orders on what to do to improve this. I'll get this back out. We'll have one more opportunity to look at this before I send it on to the commission. Larry,
So I also had a comment that I gave you related to the first page. Um,
you're talking about John?
no, it was on the first page related to um, the Clean Water Act, and I think there was the idea that the limits for PFAS and biosolids were tied to um, hazardous waste designation, and that actually was confused. There's limitations on disposal, and that's tied to hazardous waste designation, but um, the limitations on the biosolids is a provision in the Clean Water Act. So that's kind of a technical point, but I think it's important because you want it to be technically accurate.
That was in the paragraph called legal framework?
It was, I believe so.
Okay. Um, I'll make sure I'm sorry. I guess I missed that when I was going back through all this a couple days ago to make sure I'd captured everything, and I'll loop back with you to make sure I've said that appropriately.
Perfect.
Okay. Okay. Made a note to myself on that one. All right. Um, and let's see. I've got somebody else. Join Paul Howard. Um, Hi, Paul. Welcome. We're just wrapped up the PFAS discussion. Uh, but this is recorded if you're interested in going back and listening to it as we walk through the report. As I was getting ready to say, I'll make these revisions. I'll send it back out to this group. And if we need to do any final touch base, the next technical committee meeting, which I think is in like 3 weeks or something, and it's a couple weeks before the commission meeting. We can mid September we can make any final adjustments before I send it on to the commission. Deirdre, go ahead.
Just wanted to interject one point for consideration.
Okay.
The regulations for designation as an organic farm specifically precludes the application of sludge or biosolids as part of the operating procedures that are legally required for that designation. Just food for thought.
Um, oh, I love the way you say that. Food for thought. Um, I tell you, if you've got a suggestion of where I can insert that detail, and it's really we're talking about a sentence. Um,
Well, it is a point of consideration, however.
okay. I'm,
Why?
I'm happy to add that in. It becomes just another data point that's of value to the policymakers.
Mhm.
The point of this is to put our elected officials from the basin on notice. Here, there's more to come, and here are things you need to be thinking about because we're going to be faced with some some trade-off decisions as as we go forward. Okay. Anything
Thank you.
else on that topic before we move on to the Rappahannock tribe? Okay. Let me make sure I got to shift to different papers.
Elton,
Okay.
I just put in the chat just so you don't lose it. Virginia Conservation Network, your neighbors there in the
Mhm.
office building. The legislative priority paper on PFAS is supposed to be ready early September, so
Yeah.
probably before our September 16th meeting, we should have that for you,
Okay.
for us to
All right.
consider. Yeah.
I had not gone over it because once I saw the timeline that you had sent me, I just
Yeah.
said I'm not going to be able to get anything from them officially in time for this discussion, so I just didn't go bug them.
Not today, but now that I see we have this other meeting before the
Right.
basins, there should
Okay.
be time. So just flagging that for you.
Okay. Thank you, Don.
Yep.
John.
Thank you. Yeah, just before we move off PFAS, and sorry, the proposed 2027 uh testing program. Were we going to discuss that now that you had circulated with some emails?
Go ahead. I'm sorry I didn't bring that up. Go ahead.
Okay, I didn't know if we were discussing that now or afterwards, but yeah. So just on that testing program, while I support more data in any way we can get it, I just find that proposal might be a little bit ahead of getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, just because we don't have what those proposals that you had sent out from the emails that you had been sent really creates this data set that uh doesn't seem to have an end goal in mind, where the academic side for what sort of soil contamination levels we should be looking at is still really in its infancy, along with the soil up or the crop uptake of PFAS itself. And then we just looked at that budget proposal bill that was added.
Right.
That was $1 million for a desktop study on landfill capacity. What the soil testing program that had as proposed as written reads to me as this is going to require DEQ to test every land application site. I'm not 100% certain, but DEQ just on the industrial user survey said that they were going to have to add, I believe it was 12 full-time positions. So this is just, if this testing program is something that we're expecting DEQ to operate, this is a multi-million-dollar program with multiple full-time positions at probably every single regional office. I just don't know where we land on that, and I don't understand what this data set is going to show us beyond, like, if we land apply solids that we know have PFAS, then we do know it's then on that site. I do agree that there is a bit of a knowledge gap on how PFAS can accumulate in the soils, and I'm assuming the goal of this would then be to have some type of a like a nutrient loading framework, similarly like we test every other site before we apply biosolids to it. But again, that framework from the academic side hasn't been established. And this is not something I feel that Virginia, specifically Virginia DEQ, has the capacity to stand up on its own.
John, let me respond to that, and this is why we hadn't had the discussion, and I should have brought this up earlier. Um, that's that last paragraph on the page that makes comments on this from the Potomac Riverkeeper on 1072, and then on Deirdre's John Marshall Soil and Water Conservation District language, and I did not bring that into this because the what it made me do is go back. Oh, I need to explain the testing and study work that DEQ is already directed to do by the Assembly through the enactment clause on 1443 and the budget language. And their plate is extremely full with just doing those things. So I just chose not and those some of the what is in the directive of the studies within the bill and the budget language, well, not so much the budget language within the bill gets at to some degree what that paragraph, well, the two sentences said, and so I just had not imported it.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I had some concerns on the language that was circulated around, but if that's not going to be something coming from the committee, then we don't need to discuss any further.
Unless somebody really disagrees with me, and I made a judgment call that by bringing in the study language embedded in the bill in the enactment clause 3, and this in related the study language within the budget, DEQ has got a massive amount of work, and they've got this General Assembly's appropriated money for them to do it, and approved adding staff. But there's only so much you can do at in one or even two fiscal years. So I, yeah, that's kind of where and unless somebody strongly disagrees, I wasn't planning to import that language in. Okay, I'm not hearing any disagreement. So, John, I think that addresses your concern. Any final comments before I shift us? Okay. Now let's see if I can successfully share my screen again. First of all, let me clear some things out of the way. Bear with me just a second, folks. And okay. Okay. So, just to put things in context here, um, the in doing the research on the question before the commission, which is the tribe's request to be a member of the commission. As I started into that work, it became obvious to me I needed to do a kind of a part one, a precursor, which is this document that was sent out to everybody, a history of the tribe. And um, I prepared a rough draft. I shared it with Alana, and she and their historic preservation officer, I believe, um, provided extensive comments, and pretty much I accepted all of those. And I mean, they were a level of detail that I hadn't been able to come to in the research I had done. And that's what this document is. It's a compilation of my work and the input of the tribe. Alana, you want to talk a little bit? This is your bailiwick.
Sure. What do you want to know?
Just the reaction to this document, and then we'll talk about really the next step, which is the putting together the paper that puts the question before the commission. So, but this one just, are you all, I assume you're, based on your comments and my acceptance of 99.9% of what you all did, you're comfortable with this history of the tribe. It's not meant to be extensive, but it is meant to put things in context.
Yeah, I think it gives a good overview of the tribe's history and where the tribe is at now. It kind of covers a little bit of the pre-colonial history, after English settlement, and the more modern day recognition efforts, and land back efforts at Fones Cliffs. Um, But yeah, I had our Tribal Historic Preservation Office look it over and make sure it was accurate. And I mostly did a lot of work on what do you call the Phones Cliffs section.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's about it.
Okay. And I'm scrolling to the end because I want to get to this. Um, right of nature, which this shows my ignorance. I'd never heard of this before doing this research, and once I read into what this means, I felt like I needed to embed it in the paper itself so that you get a context. Um, this is a really important differentiation between uh, the sovereign nation that is the tribe versus the Commonwealth of Virginia versus the political subdivisions of the counties and the one city. This is a whole different basis for governance than uh, than what those of us who work in and around state and local government in Virginia are used to. So it's important concepts to understand, I think, to put things into perspective. Um, okay, before I move on to the second document, anybody in this group have questions on this or feel like something isn't explained well enough or we should, embellish in one way or another? Pat, go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate Alana doing all this work and for this body to consider this. I think rights of nature is it's a doctrine that exists worldwide. It's not new. It may not be referred to frequently in the halls of the General Assembly, but I think it's valuable and invaluable. So I wouldn't just I know it's parked right here. We're all just staring at that, but I think there's a lot more to consider. So I don't think it's necessarily in contradiction to anything. If that's if that's a flag for you.
Um, no, I wasn't meaning to imply it's a contradiction. It's just different. And so it requires a little bit different way of thinking. Okay, I've got Jack and then Larry.
Uh, yeah, I was just gonna add, Alana did a pretty good job of summing this up, but the two things. One is that, and Alana and I discussed this at length. I think our tribal historic preservation officer, which if you're not familiar with that job, that is actually a very highly skilled position whose job is to answer cultural resource impacts. So it's a deeply mostly reliant on archaeological, anthropological, and historical knowledge. So it's an officially certified position that works with like federal cultural resource impact projects. And Ed Reagan is ours. He does a very good job. But I think he would probably want us to say that this is really just a best case overview. There's a lot more in terms of the tribe's long-term history in the region that could take up a significant more time. So I think he would want us to probably the part that he wanted to make sure you guys had the more important baseline, but there's a lot more to go into. The second thing is that for the rights of nature section, I just wanted to add that its place in the tribe's constitution is somewhat similar to how state law and state code interact. So it's put into the tribe's constitution to be reflected in certain codes and bylaws when they're written. Um, but that's all I wanted to add.
Thank you for that. Larry.
Well, first, I want to say I think this is a great document. Uh, Secondly, I just wanted to raise the point that um, generally tribes are uh, hold trust responsibilities for environmental resources. And I think that is tied to the rights of nature idea. The reason I raise this question is because the trust responsibilities are an important part of federal law. And so if people can see the relationship there, uh, it will make it a little bit easier. And they're typically documented in treaties that exist. I don't know if there are treaties that we can point to for this, but my if there are, then and I thought that there were. If there are, then I think that would be important because that would be something that would make it a lot easier for folks to appreciate uh, the the responsibility of the tribe and their standing in this area.
There is a treaty, it should be mentioned in here. It's the Treaty of Middle Plantation of
Right.
1677. That I would imagine that's closer to the top.
Yes, it is. That's we're just scanning for it. Um,
Here, I think it's
yeah, there it is, right there. Right, the paragraph that begins with during Bacon's Rebellion.
mhm.
Um, but that's correct. That is the only treaty that um,
And so if that treaty includes uh, anything about trust responsibilities for different areas, then there is a trust responsibility there for the tribe and their uh, and the deference that they are due in this area. So I should have researched that, but I didn't. But that's something that would be, I think it would give a lot more teeth to this whole uh, presentation.
okay. I appreciate that. Um, I'm going to say to you, Larry, and to Jack and Alana, if y'all can help me out with with a little more detail on what if there is a trust responsibility identified in that treaty, um, and we'll look to adding that to this paragraph probably. Um, uh, all right, other comments of things we missed. Jack, I really appreciate your and Pat, hang on just one second. Jack, I really appreciate your comment about the history could be much deeper. There's no doubt about that. I mean, it's clear from what I read through that I mean, there's 10,000 years of history. It it dwarfs um, uh, English history relative to this continent. And but I had to write something that was succinct enough that I'm going to
Yeah,
get folks to read it.
yeah. I just included it because I think Ed would want me to include that. That it's like, hey, this is just an overview. So he did a very good job with what we gave him.
Um, Okay, Pat, you
I
had a
I just put in the chat that
Don.
that treaty has had just, very recent relevance in that Caroline County case, and I just put the article in the chat about that. So,
That's coming in the second document.
oh, okay, okay, got it,
Okay, that's not part of this history.
gotcha.
That's
Okay.
current events. All right, let's see, Pat, did you have something else?
No, my question is more about procedurally, what are the next steps on this, I guess, and
Okay.
is the focus to well, I guess what is the focus and the timeline? I'm looking at the 2027 General Assembly and Basic Commission, and my ideals would be to have the Rappahannock tribe as a member.
Hold that thought. Okay. This background document is not that. The next document is.
Okay, yeah.
All right. Okay. And so I'm glad I got everybody to the jumping off point. Now let's see if I can share that table of contents that I sent out to everybody. Okay, let me try this again.
And Eldon, just to answer your general question, Alana and I can add in more on federal trust responsibilities and federal trust relationships that the tribe currently and it currently has and is developing. We can
That
pretty easily fill that out.
that would be great. And yeah, we can decide the best way to insert that without getting, too deep in the weeds. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, I think it'd be important to be able to say to the elected officials, hey, if you want to know more, there's plenty more. We just didn't want to create a document that somebody said, I don't have time to read this. Um,
Yeah.
okay. So next step is to create this document, which I'm working on now. And what I did is I call this an outline, but essentially it's like the table of contents. Um, a little bit on, what's the point of this and how we got here. That's the purpose and scope. Then some background. First, the statutory background of the commission, and what you see listed here, these 1 through 5 are things out of the Code of Virginia. Um, Number 4 being very important to this question, that's the membership structure. There are 2 membership categories, and they are defined in the code. Um, and I'll just say, if you continue down in this, you'll see that I am of the opinion that neither of those categories are appropriate fits for tribal membership. And I'll explain why as we go. Um, so that there needs to be another way to do it. Then Rappahannock Tribe as a governmental actor and a little bit of discussion of what it means to be a sovereign nation. So then we get to how do we do this? All right. There are 2 membership categories you find in the code: legislative, which are members of the General Assembly, and non-legislative, which are the local elected officials that serve as that jurisdiction's representative on the commission. They must be a governing body member. Um, and then the soil and water conservation districts, between the 7 districts that cover the basin, select a member and alternate, and actually we have 2 alternates. And the member has to be one of the elected Soil and Water Conservation District um, um, representatives. You have members of the districts, and pardon me to my soil and water friends if I say this inartfully, the district governance includes folks that are elected officials and folks that aren't elected. So the Code of Virginia is specific that it has to be an elected soil and water conservation district director. That makes up the non-legislative. Uh, the, the the tribe doesn't fit neatly in either one of those categories. Obviously not member of the General Assembly and a member of a local governing body. The counties and the city have a different status than the tribe as a sovereign nation. So um, there needs to be, and that's what this basis for the sea, territory versus sovereignty, and a discussion of that. Um, and what a county government or a city is responsible for as a political subdivision of the Commonwealth versus what a sovereign nation is, the tribe is responsible for. Those things are different. Um, I mean, they have similarities, they have crossover, but they're different. Um, you have embedded in the code a funding obligation. I need to have a little discussion on that. You have the terms of office, and I need to have a little discussion of that. There is a mechanism for withdrawal, and then kind of summarize all that, and then we get into membership options. And these are the options that I've identified. I'm not saying these are the only options, and that's why we're talking about it here. The first would be, as Pat alluded to, excuse me, just a second. I need to close my door. I got some discussion going on out in the hall. Um, the the first would be full statutory voting member, and we just create a new category for the tribe. And it would have to be inclusive of any of the other tribes that have geographic service area coverage that includes parts of the basin. They would have to be eligible for that as well, in my opinion. Now, that's a decision that others are elected to make, not me, but just in looking at it, so there's that one. Then and that would require action of the General Assembly. B would also require action of the General Assembly, statutory ex officio non-voting member. That certainly is a status that the commission could choose to recommend. And so a little discussion on that. Then, taking a different approach. The commission, and I discussed that earlier in this paper, the commission has very broad authority to establish advisory committees or advisory groups. And I think they could, using that, and that's specifically written in the code, using that authority, the commission could just say, we're going to establish an advisory seat for the Rappahannock tribe, and we're going to choose to invite them to the meetings and fully participate, just not as a voting member, as an advisory member. That's within the authority of the commission itself, and it would not require General Assembly action. Now, that's the upside of it. The downside of it, any particular commission, any particular year could say, we don't want to do that anymore. Okay, so that's a downside of it, but it is an option. Obviously in any matrix of choices, you've got no change. Just rely on the existing consultation framework, which is not a whole lot of different from C, except that C would be an official action of the commission inviting the tribe to sit at the table. Then E comes from some working looking at other things nationally, and a memorandum of understanding, not full membership, but here's what each party is responsible for. And that comes from my reading on this group, the Klamath River Dam Removal and Restoration Memorandum of Agreement. And I said, well, okay, that's been done elsewhere in the country. It certainly could be done here. Those are the five options I see. Pat has already pointed out the recommended action to the General Assembly, which would be A. Again, I'm working on how to explain each of these, and I'm going to do a little bit of pluses and minuses of each for the commission members to consider. And I need to there. So that brings me to this next set. Well, before I move on, any thoughts on that? Did I miss something? And I know I haven't given you a whole lot of detail because I really haven't written all the detail, but I've got it framed out in my head.
Eldon, I'm curious if you have any sense for the willingness of the Virginia legislature to make a change. And I ask because
Well, that's a
Paul
great
Kruzek
question.
is my delegate, and I know that he is very interested in this
Uh,
and
uh, I'm sorry,
supportive.
who's your delegate?
Paul Kruzek.
Okay, he is very interested in it. He chairs one of the special subcommittees or joint committees, and they made a whole series of recommendations last year, and very little of it got through. And they had legislation that would say that the tribes would have the role of government to government, and that bill did not pass. And he has acknowledged publicly that they've got more work to do. So I, I don't know the answer to that question, Larry. Um, uh, I'm concerned about it. There is some resistance. I do not understand the the root of the resistance, and maybe Pat has some answers because his hand went up as you were asking the question. Go ahead, Pat.
Sure. Yeah, I think the entire slate agenda for tribal legislation basically was poo-pooed by the GA, and I think that that's problematic on many levels. I think it'll be back, and I appreciate Delegate Krizik's focus on that. For the, I mean, looking at these, the Klamath Dam removal MOA is really project focused. I don't know that that's necessarily the best comparison for this or an example. I think for me, full statutory voting membership is sort of the focus. Becoming a non-voting member or sort of an asterisk, I don't know that that makes a lot of sense. We're talking about a sovereign nation with its own governing body, elected members, representatives. So to me, full statutory voting member is, I would propose, and this is not for me to say, but I mean that would make the most sense. Um, and if there's concern about that, I'd say I'd love to hear arguments why something different.
Let me respond to that with this. What my job is to do in this, and I'm working with all of y'all to provide me feedback, is in the commission getting to a point where they're comfortable with making a decision. I need to be able to identify here are different paths that have been identified, and here are the pluses and minuses of each. I'm not advocating any of these choices. That ain't up to me. That's not my role. And my role is to try to provide the commission with the best information possible so they can do their job, which is to make a decision.
Yeah, and to that end and this is probably a question for Alana and Jack. If the tribe is seeking membership option A, is that accurate?
We would be seeking a voting membership, yes. And I think the tribe has been understanding that the end point of this proposal would involve going to the General Assembly. We understood that that was an eventual step. The goal at the beginning was to work with the commission first to make introductions and get folks understanding and comfortable, um, instead of going to the General Assembly first. But yeah, we understand that Eldon has to make all of the options available for the commission to make their decision. Uh, I guess there is a situation where the commission could recommend something different than voting membership, and the tribe would not accept that. We would still go to the GA asking for voting membership, but um, hopefully we can come to an understanding.
Yeah, I appreciate all that, and I understand, Alden, you need to provide all the different options. I would just and I'm gonna have to jump. I'm sorry, but I think it just makes sense. This just makes good sense.
Okay. Pat, you referred to the Klamath River Dam as being a project specific, and you're right. I agree. There really aren't much, there's not much out there that I can draw on as a clean example. But in just looking around doing some research, I identified the Columbia River Intertribal Fish Commission, the Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission, Klamath Dam, and then the Chesapeake Bay Program, because the tribes have been having a discussion with the Bay Program. And
Yeah, yeah.
and
And out west, there's definitely a lot more progress has been made for many reasons. The Bay program has, I'm not going to comment on that specifically, but I appreciate the tribes making an effort there. I don't think they're going to back off, but I hope you'll look into the Bay program,
mhm.
try attempts for tribal representation, and see that that is somewhat stalled out. So this is
That's
new. This will be new. This is new in Virginia, so there's not going to be just sort of okay, let's follow steps A, B, and C. But I trust that y'all will make the right decision and hopefully um, provide that the commission will endorse the tribe becoming a full voting.
okay. That really brings me to next to last section, which is just some things that need to be brought out. Well, clearly, other examples around the country. I'm going to do just a very brief discussion of each of those and whether relevant and whether not. A little brief discussion on the Bay program. But I want to start that section with no regulatory authority. It's very strongly laid out in the code sections for the commission that the commission has no regulatory authority. And that and the commission is not a political subdivision of the Commonwealth. So there's some important points that need to be reminded to everybody that there's certain things that the Rappahannock River Basin Commission are not. Um, okay, then a little discussion comparison of tribal sovereign law and pending litigation, because the pending litigation in with DEQ is a reality, and I just need to be upfront about it. And there are, I'm sure all sorts of feelings about that on all sides. I'm not going to get into all that part of it. I just need to put it out there that it's there. Then I want to do a little bit of political feasibility and timing, which gets at some of what we were just talking about. So because different ones of those choices have different political feasibility within the Virginia governmental realm, and also the timing, because the legislature can only act when the legislature meets. Um, and then try to summarize everything. So that's the table of contents. My plan is to over the next couple of weeks finish what I'm doing on this, and get it back out to this group so we can discuss it at the next technical committee meeting, and I can button it up and get it to the commission. Um, I'm working also, jointly on the agenda for September 30th. And the agenda essentially has three major agenda items. Obviously, we've got, the usual meeting minutes and all that kind of stuff. But Deputy Secretary of Natural and Historic Resources um, is gonna be with us to do kind of a natural resources priorities update, talking about Chesapeake Bay, talk about water supply, which include drought and groundwater, two very important issues. Is there and some additional things, but so Deputy Secretary Catula Also is gonna, are we gonna have a special session? There's been a call for a special session on some of these issues. Um, uh, don't know the answer to that as of just a couple days ago. Then the presentation of our previous discussion item, the PFAS policy considerations, and then the presentation of the two documents, the history and the document that we just went through, the table of contents slash outline. And I'll be presenting that. Any technical committee members that want to join us either in person or virtually, we'll be meeting at Graves Mountain Lodge. And then there will be agenda time for the tribe representatives to respond to the document and add anything that Alana, that your team wants to add. That's my rough outline of the agenda at this point. I have not gone over it with the chairman yet, so everything's subject to change. But that would keep us on schedule so that the commission either could decide to make a decision at this meeting, or they could say, "Oh, we need more information. We need this. I'd like to know the answer to that." Any number of things that somebody reading the reports could want additional information on, and then take it up at the for action at the December meeting, and that's still plenty of time to get legislation in if legislation is the route they want to go. So that's it. Happy to respond to any questions people have or anything that somebody thinks that we're missing. Alana, Jack, you all comfortable?
I think we'll send you like summaries on federal trust, and particularly our federal agency tribal consultations, which I think is something we may choose to lean on more, um, because I think it could be more useful to this body.
Okay.
We'll Summarizing that is going to take some work on our end. It's a rather large tasks that we deal with. So, um, but we will send that over to you. I don't see any particular problems with the documents in their current state.
Okay. Um, yeah, I would see that I would probably want to insert that kind of thing in that section 3 comparative analysis.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So noted. I appreciate that very much. That'll be helpful. Um, wow. I almost made the 1 hour. Um, okay, if nobody's got anything else specific, I want to thank everybody for hanging in and providing feedback and input. You're going to have some more reading to do between now and the next meeting, and we'll uh, try to get through everything. I expect the PFAS discussion at the next meeting to be much more brief than it was today, because really I'm just doing cleanup based on today's discussion, and that this topic will probably take most of our time next month. Um, and Alana, Jack, express my appreciation who your preservation officer for the input. Very valuable. Um, so thank you, everybody. Unless anybody's got something else to add, you're free to go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alden. Great work.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Oh, I just wanted to mention
So,
that our next meeting of the Potomac Watershed Roundtable will focus on the hydrogeology of the Potomac Basin and the complexity of water supply planning. And anyone is welcome to attend.
Wow.
Just go to the Potomac Watershed Roundtable website. They should be coming out with additional facts on that upcoming meeting pretty soon. And considering the drought situation in the region, it might be of interest to a lot of folks.
Wow. Yeah,
That's
you that,
October the 9th, and it will be held at Old Busthead Brewery, which is an added attraction.
well, people are probably going to need the rest of the brewery after that discussion.
There you go. Exactly.
Anyway, and the brewery shows you how important water is.
Exactly. That's why we chose it as a possible meeting site.
Great. Thank you. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Uh, Larry,
Thank you.
Deirdre, you'll both probably be hearing from me as I work on these. Thanks.
Great.